Joining me now, former Assistant District Attorney in the Manhattan DA's office and MSNBC legal analyst Catherine Christian and MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Welcome to both of you. So walk us through what the Trump team is asking, Lisa, and how they're using the pardon as part of it.
Well, let's start with what they're asking for, Chris, because they were at a point in time asking for the verdict in this case. That's the jury verdict that Trump was guilty on 34 felony counts. They were asking for that to be vacated, and now they're going further. They're saying that the indictment itself has to be fully and finally dismissed because of the norm that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. And that's an idea that they extend now to a president-elect. They essentially say that because a president-elect is consumed with ensuring the continuity of government, that the same constitutional concerns that prevent the prosecution of a sitting president should extend to Trump in this period as well, and therefore the entire case should be thrown out.
Do you think, though, Catherine, that the inclusion of the Hunter Biden pardon strengthens the Trump team argument?
No, they had to throw it in. It was sort of a gift that happened this weekend.
So more political than legal, in your view?
In fact, the whole brief, in my opinion, is legal arguments surrounded by scurrilous allegations against the prosecution team, against Jack Smith, against Judge Merchan, against his adult daughter who doesn't live with him. And it's really a political brief as opposed to a legal brief. I don't believe that Judge Merchan will be dismissing the indictment based on this. An indictment, by the way, that went to trial, and as Lisa said, a jury found the defendant, Trump, guilty of 34 counts.
So we mentioned D.A. Bragg, and he's previously signaled in his arguments that he thinks the case could be paused while Donald Trump is in office. But Trump's team in this filing, as you said, argue that that is not an option. How does that debate play into the judge's decision here?
Well, I think that debate plays in, Chris, coupled with statements that were made by the district attorney's office under a different leader, Cy Vance. When they were litigating their access to documents from the former president and future president in his personal capacity, some of his tax and financial documents, they conceded in a filing that a sitting president could not be prosecuted and that they would not intend to exert any prosecution against him. They were solely looking for documents. There's a concept called judicial estoppel. You say something in the same or related criminal proceeding, you're bound by that. And I think that is the best argument that Trump's lawyers have now. They should be and may be asked by Judge Merchan, why shouldn't that bind you here? If that's what you've already conceded, why are you asking me to pause this case rather than to dismiss it entirely?
The authors of this filing, Catherine, are Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee, two people who could end up actually at DOJ under Donald Trump. I don't even know what to say about that. Is that crazy? Does it impact this?
Well, it's interesting, and I was saying this to Lisa outside. They quote a very famous quote from Robert Jackson, who was a former U.S. Attorney General, former Supreme Court judge, where he says the most dangerous power of a prosecutor is that he will pick people who he thinks you should get rather than pick cases that should be prosecuted. I hope both Mr. Bovee and Mr. Blanche have that as screensavers if they should go to DOJ, because if they included it in this filing, I found ironic considering the statements that have been made, not by these two men, but by President-elect Trump about using the department to exact revenge against people.
So we already knew, Lisa, that Judge Juan Merchan had postponed sentencing on the 34 counts that we talked about indefinitely. What happens now?
He's going to decide whether or not to dismiss the case. The DA's brief is due on December 9th. There is not going to be a reply, and no party has asked for argument thus far. That means unless something changes, this is going to be in Juan Merchan's hand as of December 9th, and we should expect a decision to come shortly thereafter as to whether he dismisses it. If he decides he's not going to dismiss it, then he has to make the decision about whether or not to set aside the verdict. And if he doesn't set aside the verdict, what happens to sentencing? And does he, as the DA has signaled they want, stay the case for the duration of Trump's next presidency?
Merchan, and I think like all the judges who have been involved largely, at least largely, in the cases involving Donald Trump, have said that politics does not play into this, that their job is to fulfill the law. But how tough is this decision for him, do you think, Catherine?
It's very tough. We remember in September, Trump was supposed to be sentenced, but Judge Merchan, citing that it might interfere with the election and the consent of the DA's office, adjourned it until after Election Day. So I'm sure it's very tough on him, and he's a human. once again having to read about his daughter in a filing and allegations against her. But he's a very good judge and will come up with the right decision.